Welcome to another episode of Rice Among Potatoes.
Coming up.
I actually found like class dynamics a lot more important than race dynamics maybe. They don't immediately see that in the way that they would see it for someone who's white. People assume when you're an Asian that you don't know. It also, to a degree, like alienates me from then like my Chinese side.
Today, we have a very special guest for me on the show. So I'd like to introduce Eli, who is my sister. You can see the resemblance, I think.
I can definitely see it, actually.
I'm not as pretty, but
She got the better genes, obviously.
I know.
Thanks.
It's all right. I got the brains. Or maybe I don't. You'll find out in a bit. But before we get started, if you've been enjoying our videos, please remember to subscribe and like the video. It helps us tremendously. But yeah, should we get started? Let's get started.
It's really good having Eli on because we're born in the 80s.
Yeah.
You're born almost 2 decades after us. So it's going to give a new perspective on what it's like now, right? Growing up, going through school, university, etc. And comparing Toronto and the UK as well. So that'll be interesting to unpack.
I think so. Should we start?
Let's go chronologically then.
Yeah.
School first.
Yeah, I guess so. Went to a bunch of different schools. Started off, I think this first bit of primary school was just like a state school, like the local comp. Then went to a private school for the second half of primary school. I did my GCSEs at a London grammar school and then moved to a public school for my A-levels.
I've experienced 2 schools, I think. Primary school, I went to the same one. Secondary school was the same. You've experienced public, private, different locations.
Yeah.
Were there sort of different demographics that went to those schools? And did you have different experiences from an Asian going to those schools?
Totally.
And I think you went to some mixed schools and some all-girls schools.
So for the last half of primary school and then my GCSEs, I was at an all-girls school. And then sixth form was mixed. And when I was like really young, it was mixed. Super different because I think we also moved from essentially the home counties to London. So we moved to London when I started year 7. And so that was a really big difference, like in terms of the demographics of people around me. But like both of the places I went to primary school, it was like super just like white. And I was like one of the only people of color in like any of those schools. And then it was crazy actually moving to London because our family lives in the northwest of London, which has got like a really big Asian community. Lots of like East Asians, lots of Southeast Asians, lots of South Asians. And so when I started in year 7, there was like a nickname for the group of like white girls at school because there were like 10 of them in a year group of like 100. So it was like crazy moving from a place where it was like, I'm maybe one of like 10 people of color in a school versus like at age 11, then going to a school that's like, I'm surrounded by people who don't necessarily like look like me or are from the same background. It was the first time I was around people who maybe had come from a similar like
upbringing.
Like psychological upbringing of
So
like
ethnic minority that was born and grew up here.
Yeah, exactly.
So suddenly the ethnic minorities were the majorities when you came to London.
Which is also like looking back on those 5 years, so year 7 to year 11, a really weird period of my life because that's never happened again, right? Like the school I went to for GCSEs was like, I think an experience that really helped me gain the confidence I think I have today. Even the place I went to sixth form, it was like, yeah, there were like people who were from ethnic minorities, but it was still primarily white. And then Oxford, where I did my undergrad, again, kind of the same thing, where it's not like you're the only Asian person in the room or the only Asian person in college, but like, there's not many. I actually found like class dynamics a lot more important than race dynamics maybe at uni. So like the fact that I'd come from a private school at sixth form meant that I felt really comfortable around
academic people.
Yeah, academic people and also like peers. Like I'm sure if you went to private school, you know, like there's so many boys that go into uni that have gone to private school who have that sense of like confidence and arrogance that...
It's really true because I went to a state school for the entirety. I went to a grammar school for the entirety of my secondary school, and I think I definitely went to uni with a chip on my shoulder. There was definitely a lack of confidence with fitting in, and it's really interesting. We've never spoken about this before. But I never realised how much confidence you had going to uni.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear it.
I felt that I was grateful for the privilege that I had. But then it was weird because you sort of go with a sense of, and like gratefulness for your privilege, because you're like, hey, I like had this, like I went to a sixth form that prepared me the best it ever could. And yet you're also still an ethnic minority in that. And you get to uni and you feel in the one sense really comfortable because you're around all these people, all these types of people that you're used to. And in another sense, people still see you as different. And it's that sense of like, I know I belong here. Like, I know I'm worth it. I know I've worked hard. I know I'm like someone who thinks in a way that fits for this institution. But maybe someone looks at me and they're like, they don't immediately see that in the way that they would see it for someone who's white.
You're going in saying, I've done the hard work, right? I've got the grades. It's my like hard work that's got me here. Have you gone in and has anyone made you feel like maybe you don't belong there in any sort of way because of race? Or actually, when you're there at that intellect level, we're all at a level playing field?
Again, like the class thing plays into it because at somewhere like Oxford, a lot of the difficult stuff is like getting used to how posh it is. And so people assume when you're an Asian that you don't know. But I do know because I've been in these environments, because like private school gives you the resources to do that. And I think it's the almost like fighting to prove yourself that I really felt at uni.
To prove that you are different. And you belong. And
yeah, to almost prove that I'm.
Thing, isn't it? Than a race thing.
Yeah. But then I think like if you look white, people might assume that you'd already know.
Yeah.
Whereas I felt like I had to be like, hey, no, guys, these are the things I like. I like share these like opinions or I share these like interests. But you immediately think that I wouldn't.
Yeah. Actually, I think I agree with that because my wife, she worked for two companies and the founders, I think, well, one of them for sure, the founder was from Oxford or Cambridge, I don't know which one. And they would hire people from Oxford and Cambridge. And she would say there's like a certain level of like, they're just different to any other university. There's just something about them. And you both went to Oxford and Cambridge. So did you get the same feeling when you went to Cambridge then versus Oxford?
The culture was something that was, I was totally a fish out of water. And that wasn't because my English wasn't very good. You learn things like this. So you put your thumb and your first finger together and you do a B on this side, that's your bread. And you do a D on this side and that's your drink. So you use your glass on your right hand side and you take the bread from your left hand side. And that's all things which I never knew. And then going into sort of Oxbridge, going to formals, having to buy wine and dressing up and putting a gown on and all this kind of crazy things that I'd never done before. It was like all a very new experience. So from the first year was sort of just getting used to it. And then the second year was like, oh, now I'm here, I should do some work. Right. But it was that newness and going in and being like, wow. Whereas I guess you went in being like, okay, and just took it in your stride a lot more.
Yeah, I think it's not even like a difference in what you know, because I also wouldn't have known the first day I got there where the bread goes, like which bread is yours and which drink is yours. But I think maybe I went in with a confidence and like an assuredness that, yeah, I'm going to figure it out. Like, of course I will. That then made probably my experience fitting in to somewhere like Oxford maybe easier than yours. But then I also think like it also, to a degree, like alienates me from then like my Chinese side. I found it really hard at uni to connect with like Asian friends or like connect past the initial like we just share a culture and that's why we're friends to like a more deeper friendship, because almost like in somewhere like Oxbridge I'm like focusing way more and like cultivating the side of my personality that like fits into the British like elite university.
Did you feel more British then than Chinese when you
at uni? For sure, yeah.
Do you feel more British or Chinese now?
It's hard because I think I wouldn't ever want to say I'm more British than Chinese, like in terms of how I like view my identity. I'm in the process now where I'm like graduating from my master's and I'm looking for jobs, and like when I'm writing job applications, like of course I'm like using the skills I've learned from uni and like the like elite private school like mindset, psychology, like that's all the stuff that I'm writing in my application to hopefully get the jobs I want. It means that the Chinese side of me is like relegated to talking to my parents, talking to my brother, and that's kind of it. And it means that like increasingly maybe it feels like superficial.
And I think this is where we differ a little bit. And I I think I spoke about this in the past, so I won't hop on about it, but I went to uni, I saw lots of Chinese people and went, wow, there's people who look like me and they speak my language and they share my culture. Teach me more.
Yeah.
Like, why don't you? This is great. But from the sounds of it, you didn't have that same feeling. You were like, well, you took it in your stride. This is Oxford. I've been here before. Well, not quite been here before, but experienced a lot of this before. I know how to act. I'm going to try to connect people on a higher level beyond race.
I went to university.
Did you go to university?
I went. Yeah. So I didn't have formals and any of that, but I went in sort of knowing myself a little bit, but I really found myself in university. I think because it sounds like you found yourself a lot earlier than us. So, question is, girls develop faster than boys. Mm-hmm. Is that true? Example of this, I would say it is.
I think it is. I mean, I don't know about how you feel, but I feel like Eli is a lot more mature than I am. Even now, given the age difference, she's still...
There's a funny anecdote from when I graduated, actually, which happened a few months ago. I graduated in the spring. And I was there with like my friends and my friends' families, and my brother's there with our parents, and we're all sat around like a big table, like having coffee in the morning before we walk off to the graduation ceremony. And we're all introducing ourselves, and it's like me and some friends, and then one of my friends' parents, like we're going around the table, goes to Yunan, and then is like, so is Eli your older sister? And I sit there in utter shock. Because obviously the parent knows how old I am because I'm the same age as his son. And so like the oldest I'm going to be is like 24, maybe. Like if I maybe took a few gap years. But he like knows that I'm probably like 21, 22.
Early 20s.
Yeah.
I'd say that was a compliment to be
fair.
I'll take it as a compliment.
Yeah. Like, what, 18?
He's giving 18 at his ripe old age.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think I got lucky on the genes.
Hopefully I'll look good. I'll look 18 when I'm 76.
Hold on to that, basically.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I went to UCL. UCL sounds so much different to Oxford and Cambridge.
But you got to live in London. That's so much more fun.
I think I had a lot more fun. Because when we went into like, there'll be like mixed like Thai people, Malaysian, Singaporean, like British-born Indians. There was Russians. There was literally everyone. And there'll be like no pressure of the formalities of things. And we're literally just like, after the lectures, we'll be like, oh, what should we eat today? Oh, let's go to Nando's or whatever, and we'll all hang out. Would that be the same in Oxford, or is it like a different class thing? Like,
to a certain extent, like, yeah. Like, I have friends who are from all over the world still, right? So it's not like, because it's an institution that is like very historic and very traditional, that there aren't like people from everywhere, and people don't want to mix. Like, one of my best mates is from Singapore, and so there like is an availability of people from everywhere. But I think when I think about my friends, I don't think about them in the context of their race. It's a lot more like, oh, this is my friend who I like did this subject with and went to uni with. And like, we don't tend to share like the parts of ourselves that like play into our race or like our cultures as much. Like, it's a bit more like with my mate Neil, who's from Singapore, it's like the things we're going to do when we hang out will still be like, we go punting, or we go like to chapel together, or like things like that, where it's like, oh, you're really still buying into the Oxford lifestyle rather than like sharing your own with other people.
Yeah, UCL, we would not go punting. We would not go to chapel.
Yeah, okay.
But the thing about London is you get to hang out across London. You get to experience so much more than just a small university city. You get like all of London to experience during your 3 or 4 years for undergrad. And like the thing about London, which I never thought about before, but struck me recently, is you don't just get to hang out with students from UCL. You get LSE, you get King's, you get Imperial, you get Queen Mary's, you get Kingston, you get City, you get... I'm sorry, I haven't mentioned all the universities in London, but there's like 10 or 15 universities in London, and the university population in London is like huge, right? So the number of people you can interact with is so broad. I think it gives you a different view on university and like what culture it's like.
Yeah. It's definitely very different, because like when I was at university, my girlfriend at the time was in Oxford, and whenever I go up, I was like so shocked, like they'll need to dress up, wear their gown to dinner. Like there's a certain way of them and like their jokes and stuff that they do. My experience in London was like so different. Like I literally like felt like I owned the city, and I was like exploring everywhere. I was like, yo, dude, have you been to this spot? And like, yeah, let's go shisha and mix in this place. So that's the stuff that we would do. I guess for anyone coming to university in the UK, I guess it's what experience you want. If you want like a very traditional British experience, Oxford and Cambridge is like the place to be. But the
St Andrews maybe even more.
Yeah.
Yeah, or St Andrews, yeah.
Even more in the middle of nowhere.
And it's cheaper too because it's in Scotland.
That's true.
So like one of the things is after a night out in Cambridge, there is like one place you go, which is Gardy's. It's sort of this sort of
Is it a kebab van?
Kebab chip shop kind of thing. It's not a van, but it's a shop, and like it's the only place to go. And there's not really anywhere else to go. And I assume it's similar in Oxford. You have a van or
Is there one kebab van?
There's actually a few.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oxford's bigger than Cambridge. That's the, for anyone debating between the two, Oxford's far superior. There's a lot more going on.
Yeah, I mean, I just refer to who won both places.
Yeah, okay. Okay. But I think on the topic of London unis, I don't know, like, obviously I didn't go to uni in London, so I can't actually speak for it. But talking to friends who did go to uni here, maybe it's like just their experience versus your experience. Like, I think the cost of living has really like impacted student life here in a way that like lots of students are tending to keep to their own circles, or it seems like there's like, it's a lot harder to really like branch out into the city, maybe in the way that it like was when you were a student here. I don't want to say people don't enjoy their degrees in London, because I know lots of people who do and are very like glad to have stayed here. But I think there's a degree to which like being in a smaller city feels like liberating in a way, because it feels like you can really grasp everything in a way that with maybe London, because it's like so big, it's like you're never gonna know it properly.
No, that is true, because like there's parts of London that we haven't ventured into that we're still exploring. There's just so much to explore. But I suppose like Oxford, Cambridge, even if like not Oxford and Cambridge, like Bristol, Bath, you're going to have a much closer society and tighter-knit environment. And actually going to places will be probably more affordable in those cities. Whereas London now, like even if you don't have sort of parents to pay rent for you, like most of your allowance is going to be on rent.
Do you see any difference about sort of home students versus international students and their spending during your time at uni and how the cost of living impacted? Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
I think it's probably like a really obvious in London unis, because you get loads of like very wealthy like Asian students who come internationally, and there's like that really big stereotype of like all the Asians walk in and they're all dressed in like Balenciaga and Dior and Chanel, and they're like insanely wealthy, and then all the like home students are just like sat there in their like t-shirts.
Hoodies.
Yeah, exactly. I think in Oxford it's less of a stereotype maybe, because I think you get more like of the nerdy, like really hardworking types that go there.
Do you not get a really posh types that go there too?
With home students, yeah. It's very like either you're just like an absolute nerd, or you're like you come from a like essentially like a legacy family where like obviously
old money.
You're not like, they don't have the thing where it's like if your dad went here and your granddad went here, you get it in. Like that's not really a thing anymore. But like so many people I know, it's like for sure was easier for them to get in, just in terms of like the mentorship they had, in the advice they had, because their like parents had gone to like Oxbridge or a Russell Group or something. But in terms of spending at uni in Oxford, I feel like it's not that noticeable, because there's not actually that much to spend on. Like there's just less, and so you're like all going to the pub and you're all spending like the same amount at the pub, because you can't like spend loads. But I think in London, like it, especially with how expensive the city is now, I think that's probably different.
It's really a big difference, right? If you live in a really nice part of London, your rent could be 10, 20 times where if you're living a little bit further out.
I had so many stories of like rich Asians. It is a little bit like Crazy Rich Asians. Actually, no, but they are really nice.
Yeah, they are. But they were all nice.
But it's like the level of richness is. I was like walking to class, and there was this guy who drove past in a Porsche, just parked up. It was shit parking, by the way. Like mounted the curb, got out in this Porsche Turbo, parked it there, double yellow line. You're not supposed to park. Just went into lectures. I'm just like, what? Like, there's so many stories. There was another like girl that I was studying with, very, very nice, down to earth, and she was like, Vince, my term allowance, I can buy a BMW M3. Should I buy a BMW M3?
I know. I had friends who drove here And one of the reasons for driving here is because, yes, it's expensive, but it's cheaper than driving like in China.
That is true.
So they would buy a car here and then they would sell it off. They'll buy a second-hand car here, and then sell it off after 4 years. But they drove because it's so much cheaper here. In China, there's like 100% tax on imported cars or something like that. I don't have
luxury Western cars.
Yeah. So they drove here because the roads were nice and it's cheaper to drive, and they have the backing, the financial backing to be able to do it. So they were like, well, why don't I enjoy this experience? And look, I get it, but it's also, that like 1% or the 0.1% kind of experience.
But then it's like the 1% of China, or 0.1%, that can afford to come to the UK. And I guess because you were saying that it's actually harder to connect with them because I can't drive a Porsche to work. I can't even drive a Porsche now. And these guys are just like, yeah, a Porsche is just my daily car. So already, like, there's this big divide in terms of social status. Because social status is important in Asia, right?
Yeah. The gulf between how much I felt like I could bond with international students, many from Asia, was like a lot of them are obscenely wealthy. And so they'll like be living like a student lifestyle sort of when they're in term time, and then they go home and they're like playing golf, living in their mansions, going to the beach, going on holiday. Like, and there's a degree to that which I think, because for lots of people who are coming as international students, the fees are so high and getting out of the country is so difficult that like you're only going to sort of get that like 1% of people who can afford it.
Yeah.
And so then the people who get here, you almost get like a warped like perception of who like Chinese people are or like who Malaysian people are, because you're seeing the ones that can like afford to go to these
right at the top, right?
unis. And so I think that like adds to the sense of, okay, like I can sort of talk to you when we're talking about like uni stuff. Like I can talk about like my classes and my degree and like the extracurriculars we're doing. But as soon as we get into talking about our like personal lives, it's like, okay, you're like bringing designer bags to uni every day and it's a different one. You're wearing like Louboutins to like uni. Like that's not something that's like anywhere near the realm of reality for me or my friends. And actually I think like even for lots of the more wealthy or like more posh home students, that's also unattainable for them. And so even though like there's obviously, like we've talked about, there's like a huge benefit to going to something like a private school to then going to somewhere like Oxford, because you have all this familiarity with like the culture, but also still like the international students are so wealthy that even those people can't like connect with them.
Because I dated an international student when I was in university, and she was well off, but not extremely well off, but yet we'll still be like, oh, let's go to, was it Robuchon or that restaurant? It's Michelin star or whatever. Sure.
So not that we would know.
No,
we'd still do that. But actually a lot of them are really nice people.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are really down to earth. And I feel like the rich Chinese people that I've seen here versus the rich sort of Western white people, I actually think the rich Asian people are more down to earth because they've seen sort of the struggles in China. Their parents are probably, first gen millionaires. They understand that. Whereas the rich people who grew up in money in the UK, I feel like has a sense of righteousness.
I think that's biased a little
really?
bit. I think I've seen both across the spectrum. I think it's down to individual parents. I think it's their upbringing. I've seen people very sheltered from the reality of life, be it new money or old money, because they're like, well, we have money now, so I'm going to shelter my kid from the realities and the cruelty of the world.
That is true. I do know one that's like that as well.
Yeah, and so, but then there's others where like, well, this is new money. You should experience what I experienced. Yes, you can have good things and nice things, but you need to understand this didn't come easy.
Yeah.
The flip side with old money, I think it's the same. I think you have parents who are very well and aware that their kids need to go into the world and be very grounded. And yes, they have nice things, but still need to be grounded.
Yeah.
Versus being very protected and sheltered and being like, no, you don't need to know anything about that. Just cover your ears.
Yeah.
Cover your eyes and don't worry about it. And
like Western people, if their experience of rich Asians is probably crazy rich Asians, right? That
Unless they've met me.
just
Or
crazy
us.
Asian then.
Or
Yeah, just crazy Asian.
We're just crazy Asian.
My cat thanks you for joining us all the way to the end of this video. We do continue this conversation in the next episode where we talk about how social media influences us here in the UK. So please join us for that next episode. Please like and subscribe if you've enjoyed this.